right, Sam. Your question comes from Jana from right here in San Diego. Question is, in the development of the AK-47, Mikhail Kalashnikov borrowed design elements from several earlier firearms. One of the least known influences was a rifle produced in Czechoslovakia. Which rifle was it, and what specific design feature did Kalashnikov incorporate from it?
What a
Ooh,
specific
that's tough.
question.
Yeah, that's really specific. So I can give a little bit of background. I'll do what I usually do and give what information I do know, and then try and work my way toward what I don't know.
Okay, go for it.
Um, so and actually I talked about this in my most recent blog post. Very seldom does a firearm come out that relies on some completely novel mechanical design element. That's not to say that no one ever comes up with anything new, but the AK series of rifles and its derivatives like the PSL and the PKM have a lot of design elements from previous designs. And that makes sense. Kalashnikov took ideas he knew worked and then re-engineered them to fit into the parameters of what the Soviet Union needed. So like the design of the bolt carrier and the bolt is very reminiscent of the M1. And we knew that Kalashnikov had the opportunity to disassemble M1 rifles and M1 carbines, though he incorrectly assumed that because they have very similar controls, they were designed by the same person, which they were not. Um, so the trigger group is very Browning-esque, for example, stuff like that. But as for a Czech rifle, I'm really not familiar with pre-war Czech small arms. I know of the ZB-26 light machine gun, which became the Bren in British service. And you'll hear British people talking about how great the Bren was because it was good old British engineering, which it wasn't. And I know of the ZH-29, which was a Czech self-loading rifle. But I don't know a whole lot about the specifics of their design. So I know the ZB-26 was gas operated and used a tilting bolt. And the STG-44 is very similar to a ZB-26 in some design aspects. But the ZH-29 I'm less familiar with. I'm going to say that well, he did say rifle, and the ZB-26 was a light machine gun, so I don't think that counts. I'm going to say the ZH-29 had some design influence over the AK, but I don't know enough about that rifle to say what it is. So at best, I can get it half right, probably not at all right, but that's a good question.
Okay, so your answer is the ZH-29, and I got to tell you, the answer provided is a little it's a little interesting. First off, how would you describe? Let's go this route. We'll give you half credit, but let's go this route just to kind of get a little bit more info out of you.
I think I'll give him full credit.
Full credit. All right.
Full
Well, let's
credit.
see. We'll see what happens here. So, how would you describe the AK's bolt design? What would you describe it as?
I would, and oh man, I have a lot more to talk about with this, but I won't take up your time on the podcast. I would describe the AK's bolt design as a two-lug rotating bolt, driven by a long stroke or fixed gas piston.
Okay, right. Rotating bolt design. So the ZH-29, here's what they wrote. The Czech ZH-29 semi-automatic rifle influenced the AK-47. Kalashnikov borrowed the tilting bolt locking mechanism concept from the ZH-29, which you talked a little bit about, adapting it into the AK's rotating bolt design, and then goes on, and this is the interesting part, Sam, which itself was further refined from the Garand's and SVT-40's system.
Which he mentioned the Grand as well.
You mentioned, yeah. So,
yeah, John Garand was working on rotating bolt systems for a couple of decades, actually. I'm not really sure how a tilting bolt design would influence a rotating bolt design in its bolt. Now, I'm not saying that there's no connection, but I would be curious as to see what connection there is there, because we are aware of like for example, if you disassemble an M1 and you disassemble an AK and you compare their bolts, the M1's bolt is much larger because it has more space to fill in the receiver. Because the M1 doesn't really have a bolt carrier in the conventional sense. It has an op rod that performs the functions of the carrier, but
well, and a
the
tilting
linkage
bolt,
is fairly clear. Yeah.
an actual tilting bolt is. Well, tell people. Can you tell people what a tilting bolt is?
Yeah, so you're all listening to this. You're all probably familiar with a rotating bolt. If you can just imagine a manually operated bolt action rifle where you have to rotate the bolt to unlock it. It sort of unscrews and then you pull it back, cycle the action, and then rotate it again to lock it, screwing it into the locking recesses. A tilting bolt design locks into. You have a bolt carrier with sort of a wedge shape. I'm not explaining this very well. I'm sorry. You have a bolt carrier with sort of a wedge shape, and the bolt itself tilts and has sort of shoulders that lock into a recess in the front of the receiver, or sometimes the back of the receiver, usually the front of the receiver. And then when the action unlocks to cycle, the carrier tilts the bolt out of that recess and then pulls it back and cycles the action.
Which they're different enough. I see what you're saying. Like, how could one influence the other? Maybe they decided, hey, we don't want that, so let's go this other direction, and that was the extent of the influence.
The Soviets did have tilting bolt designs of their own. The SKS, for example, is a pretty well-known example of a tilting bolt rifle. You're accomplishing the same thing, locking the action. It's just a mechanically different way of doing it, and there are a lot of different ways of doing it. You can have a rotating bolt, a tilting bolt. You can have a flapper locked system like its name escapes me right now. The Fedorov, the Russians developed decades earlier. But I'm not saying that the answer provided by the person who sent it in is incorrect. I'm just curious to see the receipts.
Curious to see the receipts. A little subjective. In any case, you got the answer right. I think you gave enough follow-up information. We're going to give you full credit. So, Jana, you get a hat and a T-shirt, or a hat or a T-shirt, but you don't get the special prize. I think Sam successfully answered that. So the AK-47, as far as Czechoslovakia firearms goes, it was influenced by the ZH-29, specifically the bolt design is what they're saying was influenced by the ZH-29. So there you go.
According to whom? Jana, you said?
According to Jana from San Diego. But Jana, we want to see the receipts. Send the receipts.
Yeah, let's see. I want to learn something. I want to be, I want to be educated by this. I want to learn something.
There you go. All right, Sam, awesome job. Very interesting information. Anything else you want to talk about or cover?
Yeah, if you want to talk about, just briefly, if you want to talk about Czech firearms influence on other designs, the ZB26, I think, is a better example, because the STG-44, which is commonly recognized as one of the first militarily used assault rifles and was hugely influential, is basically an upside-down ZB-26 in some ways. It uses a similar gas system and similar bolt. The FN-FAL derived therefrom is, kind of derived therefrom. It's an evolution of the same core design, therefore is a distant descendant of the ZB-26. And the FAL was nicknamed the right arm of the free world because so many countries adopted it as their standard service long arms during the Cold War. So it's that I think is a more interesting, more historically interesting Czech firearm.
Awesome. Okay, good. Well, thanks, man. Awesome job. Appreciate all your insight and information. So there you go. Sam the Gunman stumped my nephew. Jana was unable to stump my nephew. So thanks a lot, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. See you next week. Hey, thanks for watching Gun Owners Radio. I hope you loved that clip. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and follow us on social media. And check out our website at gunownersradio.com.